Welcome back. So I know we've been jumping around like CBS, Peacock to Mav TV between my homie Cooksy and then this channel. So hopefully you've checked all 4 of them out. If you haven't, go back and forth because they're on there. There's 4 total, right? 4 total. It's 1, 2. Anyway, right now we're going to talk about injuries and then also best privateer standout. And the whole privateer is like a real caveat because it's like, hey, I could be a fill-in for a factory rider. Hey, I actually have like kind of factory support. And hey, I got a box van. So your definition of privateer is, up in the air. Because is privateer Latin for like servant, or that's domestique when it comes to cycling? But the term privateer, I guess I need to Google this so I don't say something stupid where we have somebody that's not dead that I say is dead. So while I Google, Coach, why don't you let us know who your biggest privateer standout could be? Could be 450, could be 250, could be both.
Yeah, I've got one for both. When we look at the 250 side, I have a big lean towards Colin Park. Colin Park rides for Phoenix Honda. He asked the guys, hey, look, after a successful 250 season, I don't want to sit dormant all summer long. So Phoenix has agreed to give him a van, and he's hitting the road with a 450. I had the privilege of working with Colin Park early in his amateur career. He's got an extensive swimming background. The guy is as durable as steel. He's had very few injuries. If you look at his amateur career going into pro, he obviously showed, I love this at the series finale with all that quote unquote pressure. You guys can kind of refer to what your definition of pressure is. He nailed that whole shot, led for a couple laps. To me, it shows that he realizes he belongs. He's got many years of physical experience under his belt. So he's strong, he's durable, super flexible. I think he's going to be a big surprise for everybody. I think Phoenix has got a good, power plan underneath him. Look for Colin Park to put a big stamp on that 450. I mean, he already got Rookie of the Year. That's not why I'm choosing him. The reason why I'm choosing him is because of what I know about his background. He's got a good family around him. He's got good people around him. And I think you'll see him be a big surprise in the 450 class this summer.
Well, and he was a big surprise for me to Supercross. Like, he really just kind of came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. I was just surprised. Like, did not expect him. I actually had to research who he was.
Yep.
But I didn't know his swimming background, the flexibility, all that stuff makes me...
What do you do swimming-wise?
Well, like when he was in high school and stuff, he swam for the team. Ironically, he grew up out in the Claremont area, so he was at the National Training Center, which a lot of the guys use out there in Claremont, even to this day. So, yeah, and we can't forget, I mean, he rode for Phoenix Honda in the Arena Cross Series and did really well. Jace Owens himself, drawing a mental blank, guys. Who was it that went? Who wrapped
Kyle Peters.
Kyle Peters, thank you. He's teammates with Kyle Peters. Kyle Peters has a lot of experience, and I think Colin, you're never going to meet a more polite young man in your life. And when it comes to learning and asking questions, Colin's not afraid to do either of those, which I think is going to bode well for him in regards to that fast track to the top. And I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, the Phoenix team was not planning on going outdoors, and he actually requested it. So think about how cool that is.
It's crazy that we're talking about privateers that kind of have a somewhat of a semi behind him, and
he's only using a Sprinter van, believe it or not. That's all they're giving him.
Really? But
yep, they provided him a Sprinter van.
Okay, so he's pretty close to what we're talking about, which, hey, I've got the definition of privateer.
Privateer.
Oh, boy.
It is an armed ship owned and officed by a private individual holding a government commission and authorized for use for war, especially in capture of an enemy merchant ship. So
we just lost all our listeners. Thanks, Johnny.
Okay, fine.
Do you want me to go 250, Johnny, or are you going to go? You want 250?
You want to look something else up, Johnny?
I might have to use the power of Google. It's just a bandwidth issue. Just
why don't we sit here while you fill out like a crossword or something? That's exciting.
Yeah, dude, Sudoku. Those things always get me. And-
Coach, go ahead. Coach, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, Cooksy, let's find out who your 450 guy is because you're just being
okay,
dick
okay.
over there, interrupting.
Oh,
we might as
sorry,
well.
sorry.
Coach, you cool with holding on to your 251 while we continue?
Absolutely.
To talk about
Yeah,
the full
absolutely.
50s?
Go for it.
All right,
450s.
Chris.
Okay, I was waiting. Okay.
Yeah.
Being polite.
The man-child, Garrett Marchbanks. I have wanted to see this talented rider on a 450 for quite some time. He rode
Hey, hold
Daytona.
up. I know we were talking about like weight wise, and he's been too heavy for a 250. Seems like he might be kind of the perfect weight for a 450. Don't you agree?
Don't you have something to look up?
No, I'm telling you, I'm making a point. That's a good point.
No. So the weight on a 450 is not an advantage.
No, but
it's
he's,
a
he's better suited.
Can I
for
finish
the
my sentence,
450.
Johnny?
I possibly, unless I want to interrupt you again.
That's all right. I interrupt you all the time, so it's only fair.
I know. I'm still waiting for that text message with the apology. Still haven't gotten.
I'm
that.
not texting you. So,
Fauci.
look something up and let me get my take on Garrett Marchbanks. He's so super talented. The one thing that worries me is the Addison's disease, where he overdid it last year. I don't know if he's completely recovered, and I don't know how his endurance will be, but I'm just excited to see him on a 450, and I do believe there's a really good chance if it goes well and he looks good, we're going to see him on a 450 in Supercross next year. Johnny, you got something to look up, or are you good?
No. Rob
Or
was
did
saying
you go to
he was
sleep?
sorry, and Rob, you have nothing to be sorry about. You know, you're a wise motherfucker over there. I'm waiting for an apology from Fauci over there because he deserves. Fauci needs to give us all an apology.
I will apologize to Coach. I didn't mean to interrupt in Coach's incredible take. Johnny, fuck off.
Ouch.
Sorry. No.
Okay, I
Sorry, not
agree.
sorry.
I'm excited to see Marchbanks on a 450. Again, this is, I would say that Coach's pick is more of a privateer than the Club MX stuff because it's a fine line. Even the definition. Do I need to bring the definition back up here?
No
With
definitions,
the
Johnny.
definition, even Google makes it.
You want to find a dead guy to talk about?
Privateer. Privateer.
Can you guys hear
Privateer. Privateer.
No.
She's kind of got a high pitched voice here, but no. And I guess privateer because it's saying authorized for use for war. These guys are kind of going.
Oh
through
my
war,
gosh,
but
we're going back to that.
might be something. If we're going for my privateer, I've got kind of a couple. I would say Bogle would be my top pick on his Suzuki. Just the dude was getting awesome hole shots, and I loved what he did to Barsha. Therefore, I'm hoping that this guy can do well enough to get back onto a factory ride because he's just, at this point, even on Jace's podcast, he was saying that he's just kind of doing it for the love of it. And I'd like to see him do well and do the Kickstarter good.
Are we just going to skip the fact that they actually have some factory support?
Well, I mean,
It is a Suzuki. I'm with you.
But what's the definition of factory support from Suzuki these days?
I mean,
Seriously.
what's the big difference between that and the Club MX bikes?
Well, I think factory support from Suzuki, you get like 20% off at a dealership.
On a bike that's been the same since 2012.
6.
Yeah, 6.
Do they have electric start at this point now? Do they?
No.
Nope.
It's still Kickstarter.
And it's still heavier by like 30 pounds.
So hopefully, he doesn't.
But how crazy it is it when we start seeing these Suzuki starting out front. That's the part that still gets me. You look at that 250 class, you got
What do you think if you were to take
Mumford?
like Roxon's old Suzuki?
That's what they're riding.
Yeah, that's the bike they're on right now.
Well, dude, that was like what, 16, 15? Think about how many years of development these other brands have been just fine tuning. Like that's a big leap, man.
How embarrassing is it to be a pro on the starting grid kicking your bike? It's like that summer when Amart stalled the bike and he went off the side of the whoops and he was trying to kickstart and he's not tall enough to get on top of it plus kickstart
Dude,
at
how
the
much
same
extra
time.
effort it takes to kickstart those damn things is just.
I just came back from a camp in Michigan and there was a guy that had a bike that was a Kickstarter and I said I think everybody should have to push start their bikes to keep it level for you where you've got to kick it and everybody else just hits that button and goes.
Yeah.
So I
Unless
agree
your
with you.
battery dies there, and then
Yep.
you're completely kind of screwed. Oh, well, you can still kind of push start it, but we're digressing. You know, I think Freddie Norn would be a good one too, but we don't really know where exactly he's fitting. Cody Schock, I would like to, but we do agree that we think he's injured.
Well, on Instagram the other day, he hit a golf ball with his crutch.
Oh, he did.
So
He did.
he's still on crutches. I know. Yeah.
Well, think about him 2 summers ago. He was who everybody was talking about. And it's just that's how fast the tide changes in this.
Well, and it sucks that you can be inside the top 10, and in Moto, you don't get anywhere. I guess the question that I propose is, if you're inside the top 10 at Supercross, do you get better treatment than if you're in the top 10 at Motocross? Would you say that there's an advantage?
1,000%.
100%.
You know,
1,000%.
interesting, right? Interesting.
Yep.
So, like, if Ryan Breeze was top 10, couple times top 5 in Supercross, no question asked, he's going to get better support than if he had a couple motos finishing 10, 5th in outdoors. I guess there's no argument there.
Yeah, all you got to do is go look at Isaac Teasdale. He was finishing, he's whole shotting those guys and running in the top 10, didn't get any offers. And you got the guys that are running inside that top 10 in Supercross. What team was Cody on that folded?
That was Michael Lindsay's team.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Because they were starting to get some momentum, and then Michael pulled the plug on that. So
honestly, Robert Piazza, with you saw his injury with his wrist going completely out. It would be super cool to see him finishing inside the top 30 at a couple nationals if he decides to race at all. I think he's a good pure privateer to pick.
Well, and the fact that he came back and even tried to qualify for some Supercrosses, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, because the doctors were telling him that you're completely done, because that's kind of right up there, the same injury that, was it Rick Johnson that had a massive where he was trying to switch throttles to the other side and just couldn't even have it done. And then the other rider that I think about is Kevin Moranz. There's a guy that has a really good Supercross finishing where he was struggling to make the mains, and then at the end of it, he was inside every time. I think talking with him a little bit, he's planning on missing the first couple rounds, but then he's going to hop back over there, because it's very difficult, especially for a guy, even like your pick, coach, that is in a box van, sprinter van, whatever, to go all across the country week in, week out. Like, maybe the national series is too long, being 12 races, with it being not as popular. Maybe it would be better if it was cut in half, almost like when Osborne won it, with it just having a couple rounds at the same track might actually help.
What about having the GNCCs have the outdoor nationals every other weekend? So you reduce the burnout rate. Because I work with Mike Witowski with Factory Yamaha. We race on Sunday. We recover till Wednesday. We train Wednesday to Wednesday and do a 3-day taper. It's perfect. And this goes back to what you guys were saying earlier about the longevity of MXGP. They don't race they don't race every weekend back to back. And they've kind of focused on the outdoors, and I think everybody.
But the logistics is they're shipping across continents.
But isn't it interesting that we use that, and yet they have a smaller attrition rate than what we have, and yet we don't duplicate the success of another series? Makes you wonder.
It does make you wonder. But again, they don't have a full 40-man gate too with stuff.
Yeah, but they also don't have a prize purse, and it's kind of like the World Supercross series. It's invite only and all that. You mentioned Kevin Morant. Something to keep in mind is, remember when he had the fill-in ride at Butler Brothers? Unfortunately, he got that one weekend ride, but he never got a chance to even test the bike. It was can you imagine, any of you guys are better riders than I am. Can you imagine wrecking up to a Supercross race on Saturday? And it's here's what you got to run.
But, that's what press day's for. It's for practice.
Yeah, but what Kevin was saying, though, it's he didn't get it. He said it was like riding a pogo stick. Suspension didn't feel good. Nothing felt good. Yeah, you may have factory parts and all that, but no time to test it, no time to set it up.
To fit it for you.
I want our listener, put the listeners in that position. We all dream of being on a factory bike. Instead of it being a factory bike, let's just say you go from a yellow bike to a blue bike, or a blue bike to a green bike, or a green bike to a red bike. How different is that bike going to be? And I don't know I can't remember off the top of my head, what's qualifying on Saturday? 12 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Try figuring out a bike chassis configuration, turning radius. What are you going to do with the triple clamps?
But I guess when it comes with like that whole factory team is you should have people behind you that know what the fuck they're doing, so they can help adjust.
But it's about comfort. Like remember when Carmichael had that Honda and he just raked it out and it just looked stupid, but he felt comfortable. And as a rider, as long as you feel comfortable, you can send it. Even if it's not ideal, the comfort and the confidence, lots of guys can just send it, but you need to know what that bike's going to do. If it's going to, you can give me a better bike, but if I don't know what it's going to do,
well, you could have all the power in the world, but if the suspension really isn't there, you'll have a season like Tomax and
go back to that last round though, when Butler Brothers was walking through the pits willing to pay people to race the bike. Most people are like, I'm not going to be able to get the bike set up in one or two rounds of practice, untimed and timed. And I want people to understand that's why people were saying no to it, is they know that there's no way in an untimed practice and 2 short time practices that you're going to ride as well on a bike you've never ridden before versus the one that you wrecked up to the track with.
Well, and let's be real. When he's offering money, everyone goes, yeah, but is it going to clear?
Yeah, well, we know the answer is no to that. But
you guys both have very good points. But, Rob, I do like your point where everyone thinks that it's a dream to just get a factory bike. But then, hey, you are 1,000% correct. Without proper just testing time, you're going to be better off on the stuff that you've tested and comfortable with. And, I mean, like, that's why I've heard so many different times that, like, even the race bikes and everything, you keep the frame and everything, you just switch stuff out because the guys are just so used to how much this bike moves, where you're just kind of like replacing the parts, as opposed to when you go race your race bike, it feels so off because it's like brand new that you're kind of timid on it. It's really no different.
No, those factory bikes, they make sure that they're rotating the frame out sometimes as frequent as 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. I've seen it as long as 1 month, but usually it's every 2 weeks. Every time you roll out on the track, for the most part, you've got a new set of Dunlops underneath you. The idea is to reduce the discrepancy between that race bike and that practice bike. Now, our listeners don't have that luxury, but the pro guys do. I mean, they're going to make sure that the horsepower, all the configurations of that race bike are not going to be very, very different than that practice bike. And people don't realize that, whether that's, I mean, people may or may not realize those frames have a certain amount of stretch on them. So they're not going and riding a brand new frame on Saturday night. Or we'll talk Saturday afternoon now, or Saturday morning now. They're not going to show up on a brand new bike, super hyper rigid stiff.
But they do with boots, though. So, like, what's the difference? I'm just being devil's advocate here.
No. You're not being devil's advocate at all. It's realistic. But you're getting $1 million deal from head to toe. They practice that. They ruck up with brand new boots and get used to doing what we were told not to do. You never race in a brand new pair of boots. But those guys are showing up, And
they're probably pretty flexed and everything to begin with.
It's totally different ball game. But when you're sitting in that motorhome and that that product rep, that gear rep shows up, they're laying out 5 sets of gear. Here's your practice 1. Here's practice 2. Here's main event. Here's our opening ceremonies and first heat race. Here's main event. But it's not what you and I buy at the dealership. It's pre-flexed. It's pre-worn. You put on that jersey, it feels like a jersey you've had for 6 months. It's a different set of rules. Yeah, it may be brand new materials, but to your point, it's already been worked. It's been managed. It's been massaged. They're not the stiff boots that we get out of the box. I can guarantee you that, 100%.
So
when you go to these gear companies, they'll have a section, like a room, and it will have all these separate jerseys for the riders, and that's what the gear guy unloads into the bag and takes before each one. But yeah, like some guys want it pre-washed, some guys want it new. It all depends on the guy, but they all have these half sizes and weird stuff. That's why they told me it was a 30. That's why they told, geez, Barship must jump off the roof to get in those. So
Go back and watch Johnny's video on that one. You can get some pretty good visuals. That was classic.
So, Rob, I know you were wanting to talk about a 250 standout privateer, so let's have
this
it.
one's a tough one for me. I actually have 3 of them because as we said earlier, I don't know the health status. If Jordan Smith is healthy, he's already signed with Star Yamaha. He's on the fast track back to there. We know he's been on some factory teams before. He has a lot to prove. If he's healthy, it's going to be tough. My second one, believe it or not, is going to be Brandon Shear from Club MX. If you guys really watch him, he stepped right up like he never missed a beat. He's a full-time trainer at Club MX. He always keeps himself in shape. He's done a great job cultivating Logan Best to where he's at today. He left SOB, went over to Club MX. Brandon can still haul the mail, so he would be one. But the one that I have to really go after in regards to a standout on 250, if he's healthy, is going to be Masterpool. Last year we saw him, get the whole shot, lead a couple of rounds. Unfortunately, he found the ground a couple times too many. He gets that fixed. He could definitely be that standout privateer. I think he's still with AEO. Am I saying that right? Let me make sure I've got that right.
Yep.
Yeah, AEO, I think, is the team that he's with. If they're going racing and he's healthy, Masterpool will be hard to beat. And it goes right behind, like I said, a healthy Jordan Smith. We know that the guy's got the credentials for sure.
Funny, the guys that you were picking, like Smith and Masterpool, these guys are guys that had factory gigs before, then were thrown out, and now they're working their way back up.
It's the flaw of amateur motocross. These guys were the stellar guys. We go and we look at that Bar X team, as we were just teasing. You look at that Bar X team, you've got Mumford, Schwartz, and Drake. If you went to Loretta's 2-3 years ago, they were the next big thing that was coming out. It reminded me of that year in the 250 Pro Sport class when, as we said earlier, Chisholm, Stroop, Bonnie. I mean, the depth of field that was on that too. Kennard was in that as well. He was already signed with Geico. That's what that Bar X team reminds me of, is Loretta's. And to your point, Johnny, they were the next big thing. They got one summer to prove it, didn't prove it. They got dismissed. And it's sad, really sad.
Chris, 250.
I'm going to go 250 standout privateer. They're not necessarily privateers, but they are on Suzuki's. I'm going to go with Carson Mumford. I think Mumford is
I
just...
should have gone before you guys. Damn. Okay. Carson Mumford.
Mumford, Drake, Schwartz, and let's not forget
Do you think
Schwartz.
he goes by that song, Do you think one of his favorite artists is the Mumford and Sons?
Isn't that a show?
Is it a show, or is it an artist, or is it a song?
I don't know.
Here, while you talk, I'm going to Google.
Hey, why don't you look that up, Johnny? Look that up.
Look that up. Yeah, Mumford is Mumford and Sons. No, Carson Mumford he's had some injuries, and he was a victim of the whole Geico folding. Then he jumped on Michael Lindsay's team, and he hit his head, and he just didn't. But he started to come around towards the end of last year, and then they pulled the rug out from under him, and now he's on the Suzuki. He did okay in Supercross, but that Suzuki seems to work a lot better outdoors. So I expect all those Suzuki guys to look pretty good, but I think Mumford will be at the top of the group.
Hey, Chris, do you know who does their motors? Is it Twisted Throttle?
I think it's Twisted Development, but don't quote me on that.
Okay, that's what I thought as well. And those motors are just ridiculously good. So,
well, remember Schwartz just pulling up the hill at Washougal? Like, those bikes run.
Well,
maybe they don't turn, but
look at even Supercross. I mean, we saw a handful of those, yellow bikes out front. So Twisted Development's definitely got a good thing going. And by the way, I don't even know who the owner is. I just hear that name and you associate it with the bikes, and it's like, wow, you can't argue with the results.
Jamie Ellis, is that right?
Does Jarrett Fry have a deal? A ride this year?
Yeah, Jarrett is over with the Firepower Honda team with Jordan Smith. Again, another guy at Loretta's was supposed to be the next big thing.
Yeah.
Well, and he was burning bridges before he even left amateurs, though, because he was on the Bar X Suzuki type team. And remember, he left for Star, and there were some hard feelings because he left a contract that had years on it.
It didn't work out too good for him at Star.
See, again, this is like the part of thing where amateurs, it should be, because I feel like when it comes to amateurs, you've got these factory teams that have these standout bikes that you're racing against mom and pop that have no money, that are just going for broke. And so if you just in a drag, the factory bike's going to beat them, so it's easy for the riders to make it look like they're just incredibly talented, where once they move up to a level with the pros where everyone is on relatively closer equipment, it's a lot more difficult. And then you've got riders that have been conditioned to, hey, this should be easy because I'm always used to winning, to now boom, 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 and then we're seeing the attrition rate of just rolling and rolling and rolling out. I think it's really sad, and you're taking guys from the schoolboy class rather than the actual pro class, where it should be the pro class in Loretta that you start taking riders from to step up, or it should even be the pros. You're taking factory guys from privateers, where you've got guys that have their license that now you're moving them up to gigs, which is different. But I'm digressing. I personally.
but hold on, Johnny. Take your example and move it from Loretta's and take it to the futures. I'm going to kind of toot my own team's horn here. We have an amateur development program. Rylan Munson has graduated from our amateur program and it was racing the futures class. If you go back and you watch the last couple rounds, absolutely nailed the start. They grabbed that second shift. Jet Reynolds' bike disappears. Hymas's bike disappears. Now, I'm not going to say that Hymas is riding the same bike as Jet. I didn't go to the race. I can't go in there and look at it. I didn't dyno the number. Mm-hmm. But you watch when Rylan grabs that second shift and he gets left like a bad idea. It's nothing more than the amateurs going right into the futures. You got Jet Reynolds, or Rider D rather, has his own supercross track, whether it's funded by himself or whether it's by Cowie or whatever. Rylan goes and trains with Tyler Rattray. He has to drive literally from Jacksonville 2.5 hours down to work with Tyler Rattray twice a week. Now, again, I'm not into the redistribution of wealth. I'm not into everybody's a winner. I'm not into everybody's got to get a fair chance. It's your point, factory equipment, access to supercross tracks. It's just that it shows you how screwed up the whole system is. Where is anybody ever going to be able to kind of carve into that top 20 when you can only ride a public track 2 or 3 days a week?
Yeah, it's almost moot point to try to be a privateer in the professionals and get onto a factory ride on. And again, we're using the term privateer where you're not already have like a semi, you're literally showing up wanting to finish 40th, want to just barely qualify. You don't have, hardly any support. It's super sad. But my picks.
Hold on. Side note. Riley Munson. Is that it?
Rylan Munson.
What's his Instagram? Because he has the best looking gear that I've seen in a long time.
No, I appreciate it. And we're we just put an agreement together with
I know this kid. Real quiet kid.
Very quiet. Yep. Very, very quiet.
My picks are the same as you. I thought Mumford and Masterpool. I picked Masterpool over Munford, whether if he's not injured, but I think both these guys are previous like factory kids that have a vendetta out that need to do something. So I'm gonna Google this while Cooksey.
Okay.
Are we talking injuries now? Who do we think in the?
Hey, real quick, Rylan Munson is Rylan Munson 38. You'll see our gear there. That gear is actually going to change design. We're going over to T-Dub. We just struck a relationship with Todd Waters. I've had a long-standing personal relationship with him, and he started a gear company. So you're going to see some really kick-ass gear coming out of Australia. It will debut during the outdoor seasons with Rylan, and you'll see it at all of our riders at Loretta's this year. So thanks for mentioning that, Chris. I really appreciate it. Super cool dude, like you said, Johnny. Super quiet, super humble, salt of the earth guy. Just a little FYI for everybody. Rylan left Colorado to come train with us full time in Florida. His dad's like, "That's great."
I was super surprised when I heard that.
But here's the cool part: his dad's made him work since he got in since he landed in Florida. And you know what I mean? It's great because he's literally the journeyman. He's driving a Sprinter van. He's doing the mechanical work. He's putting in the sweat equity. He He's got him and Josie. They're literally living the journeyman's life, and it's not easy, and it's great. I mean, I could have Rylan get on the phone with us and on this webinar together, or the YouTube together. I mean, literally over the course of 5 weeks, he drove from Orlando, drove to Colorado, raced 2 races there, came back to a money race. I mean, and then he went to Atlanta, then he went to Mass to qualify for futures, then jumped in a Sprinter van and drove to, as you would say, Johnny, in your previous shows, Utah, and race a final,
Dude,
and then drove back across the country for 2.5 days. We recovered. He unfortunately got a little bit of a virus, but he's recovered from that. Now he's getting ready to go race outdoors.
The thing is like nutrition. How do you keep up with nutrition when you're just driving? I mean, I feel like you don't unless you have a sandwich, because it's impossible.
Well, and every 3 hours we have him get out of the van, do some walking lunges, do some dynamic movements to open up the pelvis. Because, when you're sitting there driving, here's your torso, there's your femur, all the hip flexors get all bound up. This is after racing all weekend long. Mm-hmm. And then he's got to recover.
The disadvantage just keeps boom, 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 because it's the compound effect. The longer you can stay on the bike with everything, the bigger.
You'll never hear Rylan complain. That's the thing I love about him. Like you said, Johnny, he's quiet, he's humble. He's a pit bull. Piss him off. It's a hornet's nest. I mean, he's hyper competitive, but he's very respectful and he's very dedicated. But, he's going to cut his teeth into some outdoor nationals. We could do an entire show about him trying to get his pro card and some of the questions about the pro contracts. And,
I guess the last one I would, not that I'm changing the subject or interrupting, another kid that caught my is Jerry Robin. For a full-blown privateer. That's somebody that I would suspect to do pretty well in the 250 class as well. I believe he's got like a separated shoulder, possibly, with his AC joint right now. So I don't know if he's going to race mini nationals or what he's going to do, but I'd say that he's definitely a guy to watch for sure.
Well, the crazy part is we have 16 factory riders in the 250 class and only 12 in the 450 class. So, which battle would you choose? Because if you're looking at a 40-man roster, this is going to be the season of the privateers like never before.
Mm-hmm. You'd pick 450 because you can keep the bike up longer. You don't have to put as much money into it.